The black leather diary hit the wet sidewalk just seconds before the black SUV disappeared into the storm. Nobody saw it fall. Not the reporters. Not the security guards. Not even the woman screaming in panic beside the hotel entrance. Only one man noticed. A homeless father standing under a broken bus stop with his little girl sleeping against his chest. Albert Wilmot bent down slowly and picked up the diary with trembling hands. Rain soaked the pages instantly. But one sentence was still clear through the water stains. "I let my sister die because I was afraid." Albert froze. His 6-year-old daughter Susan opened her sleepy eyes. "Daddy, whose book is that?" Before Albert could answer, the television inside the cafe across the street flashed breaking news. Deborah Brown, the famous CEO, the richest woman in the city. Her private diary was missing, and whoever found it could destroy her life forever. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Albert looked back down at the diary. Then he found a photograph hidden inside. And the face in that picture changed everything. Albert Wilmot never imagined he would raise his daughter inside an old van. A year earlier, life looked different. He fixed air conditioners during the day. His wife worked weekends at a grocery store. They rented a tiny apartment near Susan's school. Nothing fancy. But they laughed together. That changed after Susan got sick. Hospital bills swallowed their savings fast. Albert worked double shifts until his hands cramped. Then layoffs hit his company. Within weeks he lost his job. Then the apartment. Then his wife walked away one morning without warning. Albert never heard from her again. Now every morning started the same way. He woke before sunrise. Folded blankets carefully. Brushed Susan's hair using bottled water and a cracked mirror. Then he walked her to school pretending everything would get better soon. Susan never complained. That hurt Albert more than anything. Sometimes she gave him half her sandwich because she noticed he skipped meals. At night Albert cleaned tables behind Rose Jones's cafe for leftover food. Rose acted tough. But she always slipped extra fries into Susan's bag. "She's too skinny," Rose would mutter. Albert always thanked her twice. Rainy nights were the hardest. Water leaked through the van roof. Susan curled beside him while traffic roared outside. Albert stayed awake listening to her breathing. He feared she would get sick again. He feared social services would discover where they lived. One evening Susan asked quietly, "Daddy, are homeless people bad?" Albert almost dropped the soup cup in his hand. "No, sweetheart." "Then why do people stare at us?" Albert forced a smile. But inside, something broke. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. If you were in Albert's shoes, trying to protect your child while losing everything around you, how would you keep going? Later that night, the television above the cafe played another story about Deborah Brown. The reporter called her cold, untouchable, ruthless in business. But then old photos appeared beside her name. Pictures of Deborah with her younger sister Jackie Brown. Jackie had died years earlier in what police called an accident. Still, rumors never stopped. Some people believed Deborah was hiding something about her sister's death. Susan pointed at the screen. "That lady looks sad." Albert looked closer. Deborah stood beside reporters wearing an expensive suit and a perfect smile. But her eyes looked empty. Like someone carrying pain too heavy to hide. Albert returned to cleaning tables. He had no idea his life was about to collide with hers forever. The next evening heavy rain flooded downtown streets. Albert and Susan stood beneath a broken shelter trying to stay dry. Across the street, cameras flashed outside a luxury hotel. Black SUVs lined the curb. Deborah Brown stepped outside surrounded by security guards. Even in the storm, she looked powerful. But her face looked tense. Angelo Murphy walked beside her speaking quickly into a phone. Then chaos exploded. A man shoved through the crowd. Papers flew everywhere. Security rushed forward. and Deborah's black diary slipped from beneath her arm without her noticing. It landed near the curb beside Albert. The SUVs sped away. Seconds later, Deborah touched her side and panicked instantly. Security guards searched everywhere. People lifted phones to record. Reporter Robert Falls appeared almost immediately. "Deborah Brown has apparently lost something important tonight," he announced loudly. Susan pointed toward the gutter. "Daddy." Albert picked up the diary before rainwater carried it away. Inside the cafe, televisions suddenly exploded with breaking news. Deborah's private diary was missing. Rumors spread online within minutes. Some claimed the diary contained secrets about Jackie Brown's death. Others offered money for information. Albert felt sick. He should return it immediately. But when he opened the first page searching for identification, one sentence stopped him cold. "I lied to the police about Jackie." Albert stared in disbelief. Susan tugged his sleeve. "Are we in trouble?" "I don't know." That was the truth. Then Angelo Murphy entered the cafe with security guards. They questioned everyone nearby. One guard pointed toward Albert immediately. "Homeless clothes. Old backpack." To them, he already looked guilty. Angelo approached carefully. "Did you see anyone pick up a black diary?" Albert hesitated. Just for 1 second. But Angelo noticed. "You know something." Reporter Robert Falls suddenly shoved a microphone toward Albert. "Sir, are you withholding stolen property?" People turned and stared. Susan hid behind her father instantly. Albert felt humiliation burn through his chest. "I didn't steal anything." "Then why are you nervous?" Robert asked. Albert imagined police taking Susan away. Imagined social workers discovering the van. Rain poured harder outside. Then Susan whispered softly beside him. "Daddy, let's go." Albert looked down at the diary hidden under his jacket. Inside those pages were secrets powerful people feared. But what exactly was Deborah Brown hiding from the world? Albert drove across town through heavy rain with shaking hands. Susan slept beneath blankets in the back seat. But Albert could not stop thinking about the diary. At a stoplight, he opened it again. Most pages were filled with loneliness, pressure, fear. Deborah wrote about feeling trapped inside her own success. Then Albert found entries about Jackie Brown. The words became darker. Painful. One sentence stood out. "Jackie begged me not to leave her alone that night." Albert swallowed hard. Another page described Deborah choosing an important business dinner instead of answering her sister's desperate calls. Hours later, Jackie died in a crash during a storm. Police ruled it an accident. But Deborah blamed herself every day afterward. Albert closed the diary slowly. This was not gossip. This was grief. The next morning, Robert Falls released a news story online. He claimed a homeless man had disappeared with Deborah's diary. Someone's blurry phone video showed Albert's face. People online called him a thief. A criminal. Rose saw the report before Albert reached the cafe. "You need to be careful," she warned. "I didn't steal anything." "I know. But people don't care about the truth once they make up their minds." Susan sat quietly coloring on napkins while customers whispered nearby. One man muttered loudly, "Figures it'd be some homeless guy." Albert stayed silent. That afternoon, police officers approached the van. Susan froze in fear. Albert stepped outside carefully. The officers questioned him for almost 20 minutes. Where did he get the diary? Why didn't he return it immediately? Was he trying to sell information? Albert answered honestly. Still, suspicion filled their eyes. After they left, Susan burst into tears. "They're taking you away, aren't they?" Albert hugged her tightly. "No, sweetheart." But his voice shook. "Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part of Albert's struggle hit you the hardest so far, and share your thoughts in the comments." That night, Albert finally decided to return the diary himself. Quietly. No reporters. No police. Rose loaned him a clean shirt. Then Albert took the train downtown. Deborah's company tower rose above the city like another world. Security guards stopped him immediately. "We're not allowing homeless people inside." Albert lowered his eyes. "I just need 5 minutes." Angelo Murphy appeared near the elevators. The moment he saw Albert, his face darkened. "You!" Albert slowly pulled the diary from his bag. Angelo's expression changed instantly. "Come with me." Upstairs, Deborah stood near the window staring at the skyline. Without cameras nearby, she looked exhausted. Fragile. Not powerful at all. Her eyes locked onto the diary. "You read it?" she whispered. "A little." Angelo stepped forward angrily. "That diary contains private information." Albert handed it back carefully. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone." Deborah took the diary with trembling hands. Then she asked quietly, "Why didn't you sell it?" Albert looked confused. "Because it belongs to you." Angelo scoffed. "People online offered thousands for it." Albert shrugged weakly. "My daughter needed food." Silence filled the room. Deborah looked at him differently after that. Like she could not understand why a man with nothing still chose honesty. Then security alarms buzzed downstairs. Robert Falls had entered the building with camera crews. Someone leaked Albert's location. Deborah panicked instantly. "If those pages become public..." Albert suddenly understood. Deborah was not protecting her image. She was protecting her sister's memory. Then Deborah looked directly at Albert. And asked the one thing nobody expected. "Will you help me?" Albert stared at her in shock. A billionaire CEO was asking a homeless father for help. Angelo objected immediately. "This is ridiculous." But Deborah ignored him. She opened the diary and removed the hidden photograph. Albert finally saw it clearly. Jackie Brown stood smiling beside a newborn baby. Deborah stood beside them crying. "There was a child?" Albert asked softly. Deborah nodded. "My sister had a daughter." "What happened to her?" Deborah's voice cracked. "She disappeared after Jackie died." The room fell silent. Deborah explained everything through tears she had hidden for years. Jackie struggled after an abusive relationship. Deborah tried helping her many times. But work always came first. The night Jackie died, she begged Deborah to pick her up. Deborah ignored the calls during an important business dinner. Hours later, police found Jackie's crashed car. The baby was gone. Nobody ever found her. "I buried myself in work after that," Deborah whispered. "I thought success would erase the guilt." Albert listened quietly. Then Deborah revealed why the diary mattered so much. Inside were clues connected to the missing child. Names. Addresses. Phone numbers. "If reporters get those pages," Deborah said, "they'll destroy every chance I have left to find her." Albert looked at the photograph again. Pain recognized pain. A parent recognized another parent drowning in regret. Then Albert said softly, "You don't need money right now." Deborah looked confused. "You need forgiveness." Tears rolled down her face. Even Angelo looked shaken. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts below. If you carried guilt like Deborah for years, would you finally tell the truth the way she just did? Suddenly Rose called Albert repeatedly. He answered fast. Her voice trembled. "Albert, social services came looking for Susan." His blood ran cold. Robert Falls had exposed where they lived. Deborah overheard everything. Without hesitation, she grabbed her coat. "Let's go get your daughter." For the first time in years, Albert no longer felt alone. By the time Albert and Deborah reached the cafe, Susan sat crying beside Rose. A social worker stood nearby taking notes. Robert Falls waited outside filming everything. Albert rushed towards Susan immediately. She threw herself into his arms. The social worker looked uncertain. Then Deborah Brown stepped forward beside him. The entire cafe went silent. Robert pushed inside quickly. "Deborah, is this the homeless man who stole your diary?" Deborah turned toward the cameras calmly. "No." Silence filled the room. He protected something deeply personal when he had every reason not to. Robert tried interrupting. But sources claim. You exploited grief for entertainment, Deborah snapped. For once, stop turning people's pain into headlines. Robert lowered the microphone slowly. Nobody expected Deborah Brown to defend a homeless father publicly. Then she shocked everyone again. She looked directly at the social worker. Albert Woolman and his daughter are under my company's protection effective immediately. Albert stared at her in disbelief. Days later, Deborah arranged temporary housing for Albert and Susan. Nothing huge. Just a small, clean apartment. Susan cried when she saw her own bed. Albert stood silently in the doorway fighting tears. Meanwhile, Deborah reopened the investigation into Jackie's missing daughter. For the first time in years, she stopped hiding behind silence. Angelo even apologized privately to Albert. I judged you too quickly. Albert smiled weakly. A lot of people do. One evening, Deborah visited Albert's apartment carrying a small box of Jackie's photographs. Susan hugged Deborah tightly without warning. The powerful CO froze for a moment before hugging her back. Almost like she had forgotten what comfort felt like. Before we move into this final part, tell me something honest in the comments. Have you ever met someone who changed your life simply because they chose kindness when they didn't have to? That night, Deborah stood outside the apartment building watching Albert and Susan laugh through the kitchen window. For years she believed money could bury guilt. But a homeless father had reminded her what truly mattered. And for the first time in a long while, hope returned. Some people lose money. Some lose homes. Some lose people they love. But the deepest pain often comes from believing you failed someone who needed you most. Albert Woolman carried that fear every single day. He feared failing Susan. He feared losing her. He feared the world would only see a homeless man instead of a father fighting with everything he had. Yet even after life stripped almost everything away from him, Albert still chose honesty. That one decision changed multiple lives forever. Deborah Brown spent years hiding behind power and success. The world saw a cold CO. But behind expensive offices and flashing cameras stood a woman drowning in guilt over her sister Jackie. She believed silence would protect her. Instead, it slowly destroyed her from the inside. Sometimes people carrying the heaviest pain become experts at pretending they feel nothing at all. That is why Albert's kindness hit her so deeply. He did not see a billionaire first. He saw another broken human being. And maybe that is why stories like this matter. Because pain does not care about status. Loneliness does not care about money. A homeless father sleeping inside a van and a wealthy CEO inside a glass tower were both carrying wounds nobody else could fully understand. But one honest act connected their lives forever. Susan also reminds people of something important. Children notice everything. The fear in their parents' eyes. The silent sacrifices. The nights parents pretend they already ate so their child can finish the last meal. Yet children still find ways to love with pure hearts. Even during hardship. Even during uncertainty. Before we end tonight's story, share your thoughts below. If you found Deborah's diary while struggling to survive the way Albert was, what would you have done? And if this story touched your heart even a little, please like this video. It truly helps more people discover stories like this. Single parents watching right now, your strength matters more than you know. Whether you are struggling quietly or fighting battles nobody sees, this channel is for you too. Share your story in the comments. Someone out there may need your words tonight. And if you believe kindness still matters in this world, subscribe to The Redeemed Single Dad for more emotional stories about hope, sacrifice, healing, and second chances. Thank you for staying until the very end. Until next time, take care of yourself. And never underestimate how one honest choice can completely change another person's life.